Hello everyone and welcome to another Stately Office Hours. This is where the Stately team talk about what we've been working on this week, answer your questions, and generally have cool discussions about XState and Stately tooling. Let's introduce you to the team first. I know we do this every week, but it's just in case you haven't met us before. So starting with me, I'm Laura and I do developer and designer relations for Stately. David?
I'm David, the founder of Stately, creator of XState, and breaker of tests. I will fix those after this call.
And Farzad?
I'm Farzad, founder of Embed Modes again. I do engineering.
And Matthias?
Hi, I'm a junior engineer at Stately and playing around with the editor, implementing interactions and stuff like that this week.
And Matt?
I'm Matt, engineer at Stately and VS Code enthusiast.
So if you have any questions for any of us or the team in general, you can ask us on YouTube in the comments. You can join our Discord, which the URL for which is discord.gg/xstate. And in there, we actually have a dedicated channel for our office hours. So you can always ask us questions there any time of the week and we'll pick up on them. You should also be able to tweet us. You can use #StatelyOfficeHours if you want, but you don't have to. You just tweet at us. And I'm going to try to keep my eye across all of those. The YouTube one tends to be the best because we can show your comments on the screen. And so if you have any questions throughout, we'd love to hear from you. Let's start off by talking about what we've been working on this week. Anyone have anything they want to share first?
Okay, I can go on first. So for the entire week, I've been focusing on getting the inline editing of labels of the events and the states in the editor working so that you no longer have to deal with them in the right side panel, for example. You can just do them in line. And we've been doing a lot of performance work as well. Matish did the legwork on that. And then we kind of merged our work together and then did a few sessions of pre-programming on getting both the perf improvement and the inline labels out of the door.
Mm-hmm. In general, these next 2 weeks are really testing and tweaking weeks for us. We're working on getting the editor ready for public beta launch. And so some of you probably in the chat are watching are beta testers, and we want to thank you a lot for your feedback so far. We're going through every bit of feedback and prioritizing them and addressing them just because we want this to be a really great editor experience for you. So there's a lot of things happening. Personally, I'm tweaking styles, making sure that things look right, just with text overflow, just attention to detail, things like that.
The one big thing that happened this week that I'd love to hear Matej's take on was we upgraded our version of React to React 18. And there's a lot of React developers I know watch this and I know sort of pay attention to our work. So I'd love to hear sort of, because our app is sort of heavily like canvas based, there's a lot of kind of pointer moving and a lot of very rapid events. And so React 18 was a pretty good fit for us. I'd love to hear Matej talk about how that went.
Yeah, so one part of the work was to it maybe wasn't strictly required to update our application to React 18, but it was a nice exploration since we are going to need compatibility with React 18 anyway within like XState React library. So the part of that was to just prepare a build of XState React using this new fancy use sync external store hook that simplifies basically our implementation because we don't have to care about some edge cases and stuff like that. This hook was used just slightly differently across most of our hooks. So it's a nice simplification because a lot of code and differences really between those implementations just went away. Yeah, so I was able to install that together with XState with React 18 in the editor, and it actually came with some like out-of-the-box improvements, performance improvements for us. And the migration was fairly easy within the editor itself because almost all I did was just to install that React 18 and QA stuff and all of that. we are using Next.js for the editor application, so I didn't even have to adjust how the React 18 is like React DOM from within React 18 is being used in the application. Actually, you can just upgrade React 18 to React 18 without any changes. But what I was looking after was one particular feature, and what this has kind of like prompted this update to happen, because we've noticed some performance problems in the editor, and I have thought that you know, they are dogfooding that at Facebook and so on, so it's pretty stable. It shouldn't be much of a risk for us to just try it out. And one thing that comes with React 18 is automated batching of updates. So basically, our application is somewhat heavy on subscriptions. They are hidden in hooks and all of that, but if you are using like use graph actors several times, then each hook separately subscribes to like our actor on the top, and this can actually at the moment result in like over rendering of React. And with React 18, when switching to like React DOM create root API, but as I've said, we didn't really even have to do that because like Next.js just detected that we have React 18 installed, and it just switched to it. If you are using that new top level API, then all of your React subtree just opts in into that feature. And it also allows like concurrent features and all of that, but we are not really after that for the moment. And like out of the box, the whole application just got some very nice perf improvements, because those subscriptions I have mentioned are just like batched, and they don't trigger immediately the React re-render. So for a given like event sent out from a machine and so on, we just get a single re-render at most within that like call stack. Synchronous and all of that, and that was a huge deal for me. And based on that work, I was able to just like profile the application without all of that crap that I was that I knew that wouldn't be needed after that. So I could focus on like more real problems and not deal with this kind of like a top level problem. But yeah, smooth. It went really smooth, so I recommend you to try it, I guess, because it can really help you out, and it's very easy for the application developer, at least.
Yeah, for our case, it was perfect as well.
Yeah.
Right? Like there's quite a lot of kind of, because we do like nodes nested within other nodes that have edges that link to other nodes. Every time you move something, there's like a cascade of calculations that need to happen, and so batching those events is really kind of exciting for us.
Yeah, and at the same time, I know Mateusz is also thinking about the next version of XState React and how that's going to work with React 18, especially with fast refresh and use external store or whatever it's called. So yeah, we're working on that as well.
Yeah.
And this week, I had a really fun meeting with Matt where we were going into some good, like tasty design details in the interaction side. And also yesterday, David and I recorded a video which should give you really very quickly a good idea of how to model and build state machines. The example we're working with is a video player, and we've got examples of how you can do that in code and using the stately visualizer, but also using the visual editor as well. So we're going to have all those videos up, I'm hoping within the next week. And they're nice and short too, so it's not a long time commitment for you to enjoy either.
Yeah, these were exciting to create because as we were going through the landing page, we're like, how are we going to do this? This is not like just a simple video player. It has to expand, play, close automatically. And we're like, this is a perfect use case for a state machine. So,
yeah, and that's the other thing that I've been working on this week is the development of the landing page. And so that should hopefully be ready soon as well.
Yeah.
Got a lot to share with everyone. Anyone else got anything that they wanted to share about what they've been working on this week before I move on to the question of the week?
Finally, just the VS Code extension, really. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to spoil too much, but the editor integrating with the VS Code extension is very, very, very exciting, is all I'm going to say.
It's pretty magical. Yeah, I've been playing around with it.
It's going to be a lot of fun. Hopefully people will be able to, when they're coding along with our video examples, they'll be able to use it. That would be cool.
Be so cool. It's really close. It really is.
Yeah, it's going to be an explosion. We have so much to share with everyone. It's all going to come out at once. So this week we asked people in our community, how often do you use diagrams in development? And so, David, you came up with this question. What prompted you to want to think about this?
The thing that prompted me was all of the loose papers I have lying around with just, lots of diagrams and stuff. So the way I think about programming problems is that I basically just try to draw it out first, because I need to know all the different states it could be in, just the different events that can happen. And even when I wasn't really doing application development early on in my career and was more playing around with CSS, I would still use pencil and paper, or even pen and paper, just whatever I had available, to sort of sketch things out. And when I moved into startups and also working at Microsoft, I realized the importance of diagrams, where we would have architecture diagrams and just planning sessions where we would try to understand what are all of the moving parts that we need to spec out before we actually start coding. And so that's what prompted me to ask the question, how often do developers usually use diagrams in development? And I was interested in both sides, really, of people who say, we use them all the time, and people who say we wish we used them more. Because that's one of the biggest things that we're trying to explore at Stately is, how can we make diagrams a more central part of the development process? Just because they're useful not just for developers, but for the rest of your team. So yeah, it's a really interesting question.
I'm interested to know how much the rest of the team use diagrams as well. For me, I use them all the time, but it's not necessarily something I would share. It's not necessarily something I'd use to communicate yet. But I think a lot of the time, I think in diagrams as a designer. Or even write talks in diagrams. My talks start off as a box in the middle and become a massive spider of things coming off each different talking point. And that's just how I write talks, and then find the different connections between them. But I also do the same thing when I'm designing. And I find it a very good way of thinking about what you're working on in a non-hierarchical way, so that everything can have equal weight at the beginning. And that's one of the things that I find so useful about diagrams. Anyone else on the team use them or not?
You want to go? You go.
Go on.
All right, I'll go. I think that before in the wilderness, before I discovered XState and before I kind of found diagrams useful, I felt like kind of the incentives were driving me to think more in terms of user stories than diagrams, because the incentives are kind of, can I make a test out of this? Can I make when this happens, or given this, when this, then this, basically. Can I make that work? And can I write a test for that? If I can't write a test for that, then I can write a user story for that, and someone can manually QA it. So that's kind of where, when I was planning things, I thought, okay, I should do that first. And I am quite a visual person, but I never kind of connected the idea of sort of finite states to apps kind of before I discovered XState. So it was XState that really made that click for me. Farzad, did you have something to say about that, or the user stories thing? Because I know that you Epic.
So Gherkin statements as a standard of describing user stories of a certain behavior, they're a big part of how people do development in general, right? And Martin Fowler, we mentioned this again, has a very good detailed article on how Gherkin statements represent a simple state machine. But what I wanted to talk about at that moment was, because Laura said that everything has the same weight at the beginning, feels like everything is in a flat structure, and then you start adding nested states into it and finding the hierarchy out of it. it kind of felt like designing a Redux reducer and then being able to move that to a state machine, right? Because in a reducer, everything is sharing the same lifecycle. Everything updates technically at the same time. That's just something I wanted to mention. But it's funny, Matt, that you mentioned about user stories, because diagrams actually map to the user stories to execute. It's like a middle step between the practical code that executes and your thought about the workflow. And I know that I might be spoiling something here, but actually me and David started working on a user story builder as an official part of Stately. And we're aiming at making user stories a critical part of development. So that brings the diagram into the development workflow for everybody who's using the products of Stately.
Yeah, I remember talking about it with Matt, how user stories are more of a riddle, and like just having a state machine or just like a user flow, just that tells the whole story. So that's why diagrams are important.
That's it. The kind of the user stories are the riddle, and usually the code is the answer to the riddle. Actually, like well, how do I figure out this riddle? Okay, I go to the Sphinx, like the QA Sphinx or whatever, and I say, here is my code. Have I solved your riddle? But actually, the diagrams sort of they can be a middle step there, where you realize, okay, I can simulate this. I can go around here. I can see if that all works, and then from the diagram, you have a much richer description of what your app should do.
Another detour that we can take here is if you think about the history of programming languages, most of the languages started off by being a procedural language, because I think naturally that's how the human brain works, right? We interpret a certain flow from top to bottom, and we tend to think about things in discrete steps. Even though we don't call them like a formalism, like a state machine or a diagram, we think in the steps. But then we try to add magic to it and brought all sorts of reactivity and all that. All I'm saying right now is that when I try to use a use effect in React, I can't really get my mind around how things are updating and what's the dependency between different things. But when I think about the state machines, it just naturally flows in. But again, I might be biased.
Yeah, I think the key word here is story, right? It's the human brain thinks in stories. And so you have a procedural story where you can go boom, 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 boom. But state diagrams are kind of like a choose your own adventure story, where you have many different paths represented at once, and you can actually make sense of it by walking through it many different times. And that's what's so powerful, because I mean, I've seen 100,000 lines of code of like if statements and nested stuff where you just can't figure out the story. You don't know what's going on. Whereas, state charts give you that. And that's the thing with user stories. Each one is a story. And so you're having to figure out how all of these different stories relate to each other and figure out the whole mess. It's like, reading a Russian novel or something. It's horrible.
Okay, now I'm thinking that how transitioning between different states, finite states, is kind of like go to a statement. The old beloved go to a statement.
Yeah, exactly. Go to page, whatever.
Oh, I'm looking forward to the first person who's going to make a choose your own adventure with the visualizer, because that is a game I would like to play. That would be really cool.
I've been dreaming of that. Yeah.
Maybe we should collaborate on it. Everyone can take a different path.
That would be awesome. Actually, all right. So I'll just say this right now. One of the crazier ideas I've had was just making a giant choose your own adventure with a collaborative machine that we have on the Stately editor, and everyone just adding like, here's the path you could go on, or this could lead back to that path, and just, I don't know, having the world's largest choose your own adventure.
That'd
Who knows?
That'd be so good.
And we've not heard from you, Matthias. Do you use diagrams much in your development work?
Yeah, I think so. Like, especially, I would be at a very bad place if I wouldn't right now. So just to plan some features and like to plan out the work. And obviously, like right now, because previously I didn't have a chance to use XState at work, but right now we are using them in code as well. So that's a good feeling.
I actually get to say.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, there was also a tweet by Mateusz that I found really interesting, where he said that, even though XState provides like a DSL for defining your state machines, it's not really optimal. And that's not a diss against, state machines in general, but more a diss against the format of code in describing like these connected diagrams, or sorry, these connected nodes and edges. Code, like Farzad said, very linear. You're doing A, B, C, D. So it's very hard to describe this actually connects back to this, and this might connect to something else. So yeah, I think Matish was mentioning in that tweet that he prefers like just visual diagrams as an ideal format for expressing those ideas over plain code.
Yeah, it's like this DSL format allows us to do what we plan to do. So it's a good medium for like this I don't know, like intermediate representation for us. I believe that the end goal is really to rely on this on like visual diagrams. It's sort of like, like you are saying, the code is like a book and so on, and I agree, it's linear, but we are all about like comics and maps, so we want them. We don't have time for like long stories.
Yeah. So you're saying that the code is kind of an imperfect representation of the diagram. So the diagram should be the code. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah.
Good idea.
John in the comments said, my notebook is mostly arrows connecting boxes. I totally identify with that.
Oh, yeah, same here.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we did have people in the community giving us some thoughts on how they use diagrams, and I wanted to share some of them. And so first of all, we had Steve on our Discord said that he uses diagrams more than anyone else he knows, sketches diagrams with paper and pencil to help him understand stuff, then converts some of them to pretty pictures to give to others. And he actually attached some of the examples, and I thought it would be quite good, given that we're talking about something that's so visual, to actually have a look at some of the ones that he shared. And so this one here is a decision tree for determining what to display in a UI. Then where's my window gone? The next one, there we go. Oh, that one. And that is the message flow in a DDD-based application. I'm not sure what a DDD-based application is. Anyone else know what
domain-driven design.
Perfect, thank you. And this one here, and he says it's actually not that clear from the diagram itself, but this is how certificates signed and propagated through a system to authorize devices in a local network where the internet is not available. So I thought it was nice to, like, they're quite different diagrams, different styles, and these are obviously ones that are designed to be shared with other people, which does make a difference than the kind of boxes and arrows that you and I might have in our notebooks. And we also heard from Anders, who said, I often use TL Draw when I need to get a visual representation of some service or application that I'm trying to grok. We also sometimes use diagrams for describing integration in epics. Epics? Someone enlighten me on what an epic is?
Jira. There's like epics and then the stories and all that.
Yeah,
it's kind of like an umbrella of tasks. Yeah.
That makes sense.
I highly recommend you check out tldraw.com. It's very much like Excalidraw, but it has a lot of great features, and I love using it. I've actually admittedly been using it more than Excalidraw lately, so yeah, check it out.
Oh, nice. Steve Hill said, usually whenever I'm proposing a change that will impact 2+ parts of a system, one diagram for current state annotated with the problem and another for proposed state that highlights changes. That's the best way I found to share context and solicit other ideas. And I think that's quite one of the benefits we have in diagrams, is to be able to show like big systems and the changes inside of them.
It's something we also thought about a while, just like being able to diff diagrams is different than being able to diff code. Like if you move one block of code somewhere else, then GitHub will freak out and be like, hey, all of these lines changed. But really you want to express like, no, I just moved this from here to there. The actual code inside didn't change. And the same thing with diagrams, even refactoring state machines, because, like Matthew said, it's a code format, which is imperfect. You're going to get a messy diff. But really, we want to show here's graph A and here's graph B. Only these nodes changed. Only these edges changed. So that's something we're thinking about for the future, is being able to diff and visualize the diff between two different, machines or diagrams.
There's another idea here, which is, oh, sorry, Laura, you go ahead.
No, I was just going to say it's going to be really useful.
It will be useful. The thing I was going to say was there's an idea here that when you have a diagram that actually represents the thing, the application, it's permanent, And so when you make changes to it, you make changes to the diagram first, you see the small changes, and then you can understand only what's changed. Whereas often diagrams are used in a very what was the term you used last week, Laura? It was like speculative.
Speculative artifact, yeah.
Yeah, like a speculative artifact, an ephemeral artifact, something that doesn't last very long. You basically use it as an argument to make your change, and you say this is like how the new system is going to look. But often it's not grounded in reality. Often it's like kind of a sort of perfect idea of how the system is going to look. Everyone who's ever argued for a refactor never thinks that the thing that they're refactoring to is going to be worse than what they go from. Whereas I have done refactors where it's turned out worse. So yeah, I guess the idea that a diagram actually represents the system and is a permanent marker of the system is really exciting.
I mean, the system can change, right?
That's what I mean. And if you have a diagram that represents the system and you can make changes to it and understand exactly what has changed, then, it's
exactly
so
like
much easier to change.
Yeah, you would know the scope of change, whether this is the change of behavior or just rearranging the code.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Florian said, I draw things as medium for thinking. So I rarely commit complete diagrams, but I do have a lot of unfinished ones. That is something I identify with. Kevin said that he doesn't use diagrams in development often enough. And Tom said, when I worked in an office with others, I would keep a notebook for diagramming various things, whether it's architecture or CSS layout stuff or whatever. It's fun to look back at the random scribbles and try to remember what I was explaining.
Yep.
And that really speaks to that ephemeral kind of diagram rather than the living diagram.
Yep. I have a notebook of diagrams like right next to me too. So using pen is really risky, but not being able to auto layouts on pen and paper also sort of sucks. So
that's the moment when you move from notebook to screen, I think, is the point in which you need to auto layout.
One middle ground that people use is that they buy these pads like Wacom, and then they have a pen like a stylus that they can draw on, but they're actually sending like pointer events like mouse to the browser. So I've seen that people use this with Miro, the mind mapping tool. I think this should work out of the box with our editor, but we can check it out. I imagine you're drawing boxes, but
it's been a while since I've had a stylus. I can see myself using this as an excuse to get one to play with.
You would get the DX of pen and paper, but then the output of digital.
The DX of pen and paper. God. What would become?
That's great.
One of the other things that we wanted to talk about this week was AgentConf, which we've mentioned the last couple of weeks because we finally have a date for when you're speaking, David.
That's correct. So I'm going to be speaking, 99% sure I'm speaking on February 3rd. So if you didn't hear, of course, AgentConf is going virtual, and the conference is going to be split on 3 dates, which is the 27th, February 3rd, and February 10th. So I'll be speaking February 3rd, and it's very likely that we're going to be releasing the public beta of the editor before then, maybe on next week's office hours. So be sure to tune in.
Yes, and previously we had anticipated cancelling next week's office hours, which is why I don't think there's currently a live stream for you to subscribe to. I'll make sure I get that up and running in the next few days. So there is one next week now because we're not going to Austria. We will still be here. And the great thing about it being virtual now, AgentConf, is that all of you can join us and you don't have to get on a plane or anything like that to do so.
Exactly.
Now, we did have a question, which I believe Matt could answer in the comments saying, sorry if this has been asked before, but what do you guys think about setting up a tutorial similar to Svelte's tutorial? It would help new users to understand the flow and use cases of XState better. So last week's office hours, we did get a little preview of that, but Matt, do you want to talk a little bit more about it?
Yes, absolutely. We need this. We need this. Yeah, I've talked about this on multiple office hours, actually. It's been my ambition for some time to build this. And we just, the visual editor has been high priority. Various other things have been high priority. VS Code extension has been high priority. But hopefully when things calm down a bit after we release the editor, then we'll be able to put some more time towards it. I've built 2 different proofs of concepts for this now. One that's kind of simpler, and one that's more complex with that gives you feedback based on kind of your machines. It sends events to your machines, does assertions on them, all that fun stuff. And yeah, we just need some time really to design them properly, and then of course write the content and do all that stuff too. But yeah, keen on this, definitely keen on this. And also, I love that Svelte's tutorial has been called out, because that is an explicit inspiration as well. We've cited that multiple times as just, yes, this is the flow we want. Just press tutorial and shows you everything.
Yeah, I've done that one, and it was a really great experience, and also included stuff about accessibility, which they didn't have to do, and I really love that.
Very cool.
Now, does anybody else have anything that they wanted to share this week?
Oops, sorry, click that. I think I'm good. Just excited for the upcoming release.
We're storing up lots of things to demo, and there will be, as part of that explosion that I mentioned earlier, there will be an explosion of demos as well, and you'll be getting lots of demo goodness.
Yes, for sure.
Matt, you're gonna need to warm up, man.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
2 more vocal warm-ups. Go for a little run beforehand. Yeah.
Get those fingers nice and warm up, ready for the typing.
Can't wait. Can't wait.
Great. Well, then we'll wrap up this week's office hours, and we look forward to seeing you again, hopefully next week. Hope you have a good weekend. See you later.
See you, everyone.
See you guys.
Bye.